What's up, guys? It's Crash, and I sat through the EA earnings call. This is actually a live look at me listening to it. This is actually what I looked like. And yeah, it was riveting. But anyway, there were actually a couple things that I think you guys need to know about that were, to say the least, pretty interesting. Someone did ask the free-to-play question, so we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But essentially, I think the easiest way to do this is I have my notes on my screen right here of some of the things, so I'm just going to go through and talk about some of the stuff and basically what you need to know from the earnings call. It was actually pretty interesting. The first thing that popped off the page was 7.7 million players played the beta, which I thought was a lot. 3.1 million during the early access, which is the largest ever for an early access beta that they've ever had. In his prepared remarks, Andrew Wilson then talked about how they were working on polishing and refining, moving towards launch, All-Out Warfare, Portal, and Hazard Zone, which is a new squad-focused combat tactical experience. We all know that stuff. What they talked about a ton were live services, and actually 70% of their business, of their net bookings revenue, comes from live services. So they talked about how excited they were for Battlefield having a live service coming out and the plans that the team has for live services that everyone's going to enjoy and keep player engagement up and things like that. So hopefully with them not having a campaign and doing some of the lore into the multiplayer experience, that a lot of these in-game events, which he did mention that in-game events did have the most player interaction. So hopefully you get some really cool events in like Hazard Zone, and that adds a little bit of depth to that game mode, and we see some cool stuff down the line as far as new maps and cosmetics and things like that that aren't too expensive, but just keep the game being supported moving forward. Essentially, someone asked the questions. There wasn't a lot about Battlefield actually in the prepared comments. Most everything came from the questions that were asked, and someone asked what did they learn from the beta and if they were worried about releasing Battlefield near Black Friday like they did with Battlefield 5 and saying that hurt Battlefield 5. Andrew Wilson went to say the feedback from the beta was overwhelmingly positive. He pretty much has to say that. He talked about the early build of the game again, and things like that. And again, future of live services and ideas and live services with Portal. So it pretty much says we're going to get some new stuff in Portal, which I think we all kind of expected. And they're working on tuning and polishing and things like that. He said they are much more confident in the space where Battlefield 2042 is than they were with Battlefield 5. So they're not at all worried about coming up against Black Friday. They also mentioned that a lot of their games are now downloaded instead of physical copies. So what they're saying is that if they need to adjust pricing for Black Friday and things like that, it's easier done. They don't have to work with retailers and suppliers and things like that. They can do it in Origin and Steam and things like that. So they can do it digitally if they have to adjust pricing down the road, depending on how launch goes. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then someone asked the question we were all wondering. I thought it was awesome. He basically said, where's the free-to-play service? Where's the free-to-enter aspect that you talked about in the last earnings call meeting? And he said it makes sense to do that later. So it still lends to that narrative that we might get a fourth game mode like a Battle Royale next spring. I'm thinking that's how it's going to work. That's just my guess. But they said that it makes sense to have the mobile title coming early next year and then follow that up with a free-to-play element for Battlefield. So it really sounds to me like, based on what he said, that there's going to be a free-to-play element coming later down the road. They're going to try to get all the money they can in the launch window with people buying the game, and then something free-to-play is coming later. That could also mean they're making one of the three pillars of the game free in the future and get people to come in, or it could mean a fourth mode coming. Not 100% sure, but something free to play is likely to come next year based on how he worded all this. Basically, I talked about cosmetics and that they have a really interesting and cool plan to come out with a live service and keep the game alive and things like that going into the future. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I had. That's about all of the Battlefield information I got. There was a lot of talk about Sims and FIFA, and Apex Legends is absolutely going nuts for them right now. They're making a ton of money from that game. So I would expect a lot of the post-launch content for Apex, that similar kind of model, to make its way into Battlefield 2042. So yeah, that's all I had today, guys. I just wanted to give you guys a rundown so you didn't have to listen to the whole thing. Thanks so much for watching. Be a friend, tell a friend, and we'll see you on the next one.